Today's episode of The Real Deal On is brought to you by guidedhypnotic.com. That's guidedhypnotic.com. Are you feeling stressed out, anxiety-ridden, perhaps experiencing night terrors? That may be because you are full of anxiety. Bust that anxiety with your free download at guidedhypnotic.com. All right. So
I love that, Doug. So now I got to go ahead and record that. Now I have to go to guidedhypnotic.com just to find out what that is.
And hopefully everybody will right now go to guidedhypnotic.com.
You understand whenever I go ahead and pause and I'm like paying attention to that. All
right. It's as good as the hand motions. Yeah. All right. Well, if we're in for a treat, this show is based on uncovering and unpacking successful models. And we are now in a gig economy where people have multiple side hustles, and have a good friend on now who we are in a program together, a mentor mind, a mastermind, where he's one of the coaches. I am not one of the coaches in it. He's kind of one of the founders with Paul Fink. You're the OG, right?
I am the original student. So yes, as far as I won't say the original. He's had a couple before me, but I'm the one that's definitely stuck.
Okay, so you're the stickiest student.
Yeah, I'm the stickiest. Yes.
All right. So Keith Meals is an international coach and trainer, author, real estate investor, and owner of Central Florida's premier renovation and remodeling company. He loves helping others reach their potential with his results-focused coaching style. As a challenge solver, he sees opportunities where others only see issues. Since 2008, this approach has helped his students explode their businesses and their lives. Keith has been in the construction industry in Florida since 2002. Keith's innovative ideas and processes have formed the foundation for his two construction companies, On Time Home Reminders and On Time Construction Consulting. He helps homeowners create their dream home with his low-stress remodeling process and management of their ongoing home maintenance. Keith, his beautiful fiancée, Alice, and his awesome stepdaughter and budding entrepreneur, Paige, live just outside beautiful Orlando, Florida. Keith offers a guide to help you choose the right contractor for your next project at contractorhiringsecrets.com, along with the opportunity to schedule a consultation to discuss your next renovation project. These consults have saved his clients hundreds of thousands of dollars and helped them get exactly the project result they want. Wow,
thanks, Doug. That was
a
awesome.
pretty badass intro.
About it.
Yeah, you did very
well.
I
won't even say that's the best introduction today. I'll say that's the best introduction all week.
All week, and it's Wednesday, so okay, so you still got time to go up. That's great. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your most valuable asset, your time. We know you obviously have a lot going
opportunity, so to share with your people. So I always love to be able to help as many as I can. So you know that part.
Well, you do. I got to know you as a coach through Maverick Millionaires, but you have so much more to offer beyond that, and you bring your skills as a businessman into your coaching, which is phenomenal.
Right.
But so share your story a little bit as to how which came first, the construction or the coaching?
You know what? It literally, I was doing construction, working for one of the custom home builders in Orlando. Well, and as you're building custom homes, so one of the things that ends up happening is it's not like a quick build. We're not done in 90 days. So we're talking 9 months, 12 months. So for most
in a row
we had. So, and whenever we've got that going on, I start asking, I'm like, all right, these people are building multi-million-dollar houses. What the heck are they doing to be able to go ahead and afford these homes? And you had the typical stories. You had CEOs of companies. So you had people who own their own business. So we're going ahead and doing that. So, but the one thing from all the different jobs that they had, the one thing they had in common was real estate. So real estate investing was the thing. I'm like, all right, if they're doing this for real estate investing, I've got to figure this piece out. So what I did is I started off by reading, like so many people do. I went out and got a book. So, and amazingly enough, it just happened to be Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Read that, and it's always funny because you always hear, and at least I always hear now from the people I hang out with. You're learning, so only stops when you stop reading. If you stop learning, you stop earning, is what ends up happening. So you fall behind everybody and everything. And at that time, I wasn't a big reader. So, but I read that, and it was like it really literally blew my mind. I'm like, wow, there's an entirely different way of thinking that I knew nothing about. Just because, my mom's an awesome person. So took care of my brother and I after she got divorced and things. But she was taught that you go out, work for a company. So for the next, 40 years, they give you your watch and a retirement plan whenever you're done. So, and you're all good to go. And I just knew that wasn't me anyways. So I used to bounce around job to job. And that was where the issue was, is my mom used to tell me, she's like, no one's going to hire you because you only stay there for 2 to 3 years maximum and then you leave. I'm like, well, I get bored. Little did I know at the time, that was just training me to be an entrepreneur, because I worked in so many different industries. So from mom and pops all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And what that created for me was such a breadth of knowledge. So once I got the opportunity to jump into real estate investing, so I jumped into that real estate investing. So with me and a partner, we were both construction managers at the same custom home building company. So we started diving into real estate investing and got into that. Did some advanced trainings. We got the book, and then, the amazing thing that happens, Doug, is, hey, here's a book. And you're like, I'd really love to learn more. And what happens?
You learn
tickets for their event show up.
Oh yeah.
Like, here's free tickets to our event. Imagine that.
To Robert's event?
To one of Robert's events. Exactly. Yeah. So one of his, it was a 3-hour preview. So it was what it was. So we got those tickets. And we're like, I was stoked. I'm like, this is going to be freaking awesome. We went to it. Of course, there was another trainer that was out there that was the one conducting the event. And everything he talked about, though, I was like, this is the best. This is what I want to do. We can go ahead and make millions of dollars doing this. So, and my partner at that time, who is now at that point, it was my brother-in-law. Now he's my ex-brother-in-law. But whenever we were going through it, I'm like, let's do this. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So we jumped into it, went head first into it, went to a couple of different trainings, invested in a very large coaching package at the time that we went ahead and split. And that's what started me down the road. So I was going that route.
Had you already invested in real estate at that point?
Not one bit.
Okay.
So that was my training to get into real estate. So of what that was going to be. So that's, to me, that was the jumping off point.
Right. Well, yeah, the first investment was yourself before the actual real estate.
Correct.
Which is so interesting how, we know this in the coaching world. Very often people are thinking, when I make the money, then I'll invest in myself. And, sadly, that's like saying, when I lose the weight, then I'll start eating.
But I'll look good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you invested in that. You were working still as a construction manager. Okay.
So, which at that point meant 60 to 70 hours a week. So we were literally, when we started in it, and I know you're a real estate investor, so you know these pieces, but literally we would sit in the evenings. So after we got done with work, and we were doing mailers at that time. So that was before the internet marketing piece got as big as what it is now. So we were literally sitting there handwriting letters, because that was what was prescribed to us by the coaching program that we were in.
Wow.
So we're sitting there handwriting letters every night, sending them out. And for anyone who knows me, I'm one of those people where I'm high energy until my energy's done. When my energy's done, I'm literally like the light went off like that. Yeah. So I'd be sitting there writing. So and my partner would look at me like, it might be time.
Now they were recommending that you handwrite the letters, looking for, like, were you getting skip traces, or
we were doing, whenever we started out, the area we started investing in was foreclosure. So we were getting foreclosure lists, or pre-foreclosure lists, actually. So,
and the recommendation was to handwrite it versus
going ahead and doing the pre-printed, send it out. So it's more personal.
Figuring that the handwriting someone's going to open.
That's exactly it, especially on the envelopes and things like that. And then they did that. And one of the things they taught us back then was tracking. So, which was huge. I've used that for my business, for everything, for all my businesses. But with the marketing pieces, they used to have us go ahead and write it in a different color ink. So whenever somebody was opening the letter, and whenever they called you from the letter, you go, well, what color's the ink on that letter? So you knew which letter in the series it was.
Oh,
so
smart.
You could track which one was actually working, and which one worked for them to get them to pick up the phone. But that meant handwriting them up. So with different colors.
Did that yield results?
Huh? We ended up getting our first 2 deals came from that. So from writing those. Now, whenever we got it, this was 2008. So it was whenever we started real estate investing.
Okay.
So everybody's always talking about how much money that they were making. So coming up to that piece, and that's what all the examples were for all of the trainers. Like, we're making a ton of money doing this. This is going to be awesome. My partner and I were so excited. And 2008, we buy 2 houses. With both of us being in construction, we figured we've got all these connections. This is going to go boom, boom, boom. Yeah. We're going to be in and out of this house 6 weeks. Both of these houses are done on the market. We're going to make money. This is going to be perfect. Well, 6 weeks turned into 6 months. So 2008 rolled into 2009. So we know what's going on this whole time as far as the market goes. So those first 2 deals, my half of the loss, the check that I wrote to get out of it, So it was $20,000 on each of them, a little over $20,000 on each property.
Was your loss?
Was my loss. So $40,000 combined. And that has nothing to do with the amount that I invested in my education at that point too. Yeah.
So I just want to first of all acknowledge your stick-to-itiveness.
My craziness.
But for most, that would be
done.
The evidence that this isn't going to work.
Correct.
And that is so amazing. And again, I hope that people start noticing as they're listening to these shows, these patterns that show up, that we
all fumble all over ourselves before we ever get successful.
Right. Like, and so when that happened, what went through your mind? So you cut two 20K checks. Mm-hmm. You had invested probably another 25 or 30 in
actually I think it was 37,000 was what the coaching program, because there were two of us. So, but that was
so that's still 18, right? Yeah. So there you are, you're out nearly, 60K within a year, I'm guessing.
Right. Oh, definitely within a year. So it was probably about 9 months.
And in a market that people are freaking out, like no one knows what's going on. Exactly. What were you thinking when that happened?
I got afraid. There's no question about it. I mean, it's hard to go ahead and keep writing those kinds of checks and want to do it. So I got what we call paralysis analysis, where every deal that was possible that came in, we would analyze numbers like there was no tomorrow. And what would end up happening is, and the worst part about the paralysis analysis piece, outside of it taking forever to actually make a decision or get to anything, is if we were able to reinforce whatever the decision was. So if somebody bought it and bought the house, they're like, all right, it was a good deal. I should have just jumped on it. I'll jump on the next one. And that was the self-talk that was going on. I'll get the next one and it won't be a challenge. Or you got to the end of it and you looked at it and then no one ended up buying. You're like, all right, I ran my numbers right and it wasn't a good deal, which reinforced the taking your time to run the numbers and delaying your decision.
Is it?
Either way, these are not helpful for me being successful in the future.
Right. So how long did that go for before how did you get out of that?
Well, and actually I got out of it. It was funny because you talked about Paul earlier, and I had met Paul. I know I saw Marshall as one of your guests before. So Paul at that point was working with Marshall, helping him out in his rooms. And I'd gone to a Marshall event because I had tickets to a Marshall event. And I went there. So, and I will say, awesome event for anybody who wants to go. I highly recommend that.
Oh yeah, and just reiterate, it's Marshall Silver. If for those of you who didn't, go ahead and listen to Marshall's episode when you get a chance, because Marshall gives a pretty cool offer at the end of that. So you may want to take advantage of it. Yeah, always does. Yep. God bless him.
Exactly. But I went to that event, and that's where I met Paul at. So he was one of the coaches that was at that event. I was an attendee. So, and they go up and the coaches go ahead and talk a little bit. So, and then they had the opportunity to go sit down and have a meal with the coaches. And I always like to sit as close to the front as I can possibly get whenever I go to an event. So I was up front. So unfortunately, by the time I got back to the back of the room, so not realizing the patterns at that point, by the time I got back there, Paul's schedule was
booked. Yeah.
Yep. So he was booked out. His wife was booked out. Deb was booked out too, because those were the two. I'm like, I want to sit with one of those two. So I chose one of the other coaches that still had some availability. So had some great conversation. It definitely got me stoked on the mindset piece. And that's where I started to realize this is the part that I'm missing right now. So because I'm the one holding me back.
And what year is this?
This would that have been 2008? Actually, that would have been 2000. No, that would have been 2009. So this happened right after that piece.
Right.
We sold those houses, and about a month later, I went to the Marshall event.
So I want to also acknowledge you and point out a pattern here. Even though you lost two deals,
right?
You could potentially have gone, this coaching stuff doesn't work. Right. Instead of doing that, you were like, you know what? I'm going to continue down my education path. I'm going to find myself at other events and continue on the investing in your most valuable asset, which is
me. Right.
But beautiful. Sorry, I just got to point them out when they happen, because I sometimes I wonder, like I hear, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I just want to make sure everyone is like grabbing this.
Right. And it is one of the biggest things. And people, I've talked to so many friends and family, they look at those things and a lot of my family has no idea that whole story. So because if they knew the story, so they would be like ready to lock me up. They're like, we got to get you committed. Something's going on. You're going.
So you didn't obviously then consult with your family about what your next decisions may or may not be. Did they have advice for you? Were they telling you things like, "Oh, I told you real estate was going to suck"? Or
you know what? The only one that they actually didn't say it. They may have thought it would have been my partner's wife. So who was my sister-in-law. So she may have thought that at the time, and then by that time that I ended up doing that, I was already divorced, so it didn't matter what my wife thought on that end. So yeah, they definitely may have thought it. My brother and my mother had no idea. My brother actually helped out on a bunch of the rehab work that we did. So, but he didn't know the money that was going in it because he was getting paid as an employee for the work he was doing. So he's the only one that made money on the job. So
well, and so I just want to also put a little context for some people, and most of the people watching this or listening are entrepreneurs and would never think this. There is a lot of risk, a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into investing. And I think sometimes people see someone successful driving around in a nice car and having all this great stuff, and they go, "Hey, I want that." They're not working that hard, and it's interesting to watch, and is why it's important that we put this out. So we just lay a path for people to do that, and also maybe appreciate what investors and what people go through in order to create that level of success for whatever that means to that person.
Well, and and that's exactly right, because it is, one of the big things that I would get questioned all the time, and I still get questioned to this day because I still work the same way because I love what I do with my businesses, between the coaching and between my construction and remodeling business, is people are always like, weekends come and you get that, hey, it's, it's Friday, TGIF, so it's going to be an awesome weekend. I get to do whatever the heck I want to do. And the funny thing is, what I choose to do on those weekends, so outside of I do stuff with my family, of course, there's no question about that. But every day I do something work related, because and literally my family will say this, like, we're on vacation, like, can't you just step away at all? And I'm like, so here's the thing, when they're on vacation, they want to do nothing, and that's their enjoyment, and they're good with that, and I'm good with that too. That's what I want them to do while they're there. The challenge for me is, if I step away from doing any of that, I'm actually hurting myself because of the fact that I actually miss it. And that's what people don't realize with the entrepreneurs is I love what I do. So if you make me not do it, you're actually depriving me of something. And that's the part that so many people, especially friends and family and stuff, don't necessarily get unless they're entrepreneurs too.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Heidi and I, when we go on vacation, we go to Disney. Well, we used to go to Disney quite a bit. We're going soon. But we would be like, okay, so, all right, so today or tomorrow, we got to, we're not going to really get going until noon, because we each have clients from 10 to noon or whatever. And we're just going to be, separate ourselves, give Ellie something to do. And, we're going to take care of what we can. So, yeah, there is a mindset shift.
Huge.
But at the same time, that's the life we design.
Right. And that's what you just said there. That's the key, is we chose what this looks like. And that's the awesome part about being the entrepreneur. So as you get to choose how that shows up. And like for me, I get up every day. So no matter what day of the week it is, at 4:15 in the morning. So is when I get up. So at 4:15 in the morning, I wake up, which means that my fiance and her daughter do not wake up at 4:15 in the morning. So unless we're going to
have it down to a
Christmas time, we're driving to the Keys, they'll be up at 4:15 in the morning to walk out to the truck to get in it and go back to sleep. So that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
So I get lots of time in the morning where I have space to actually do stuff before we would be, like, hey, we're going, like you're talking about, going to the parks. We're going out for a family day and doing something, whatever that might be. So I have a ton of time. So in that case, that I'm able to go ahead and do what I do for my businesses before we ever leave. So it really never impacts my family time. So I won't say never, but rarely impacts my family.
Yeah, because I'm sure you don't do your coaching calls at 5:30 a.m.
If I could find people to show up, Doug, I'd be there at 4:15.
I know you would. I'm just saying the average, especially since we got a client in California, and that's
a little more of a challenge. Well, actually, for them, if they're up late, they might.
That's true. Yeah, it may not be as bad. True.
Yeah. And that's for us. That's the key, though, is we love to do that. And I'd say always, whatever you love to do, whether it's work, whether it's play, whatever it is, do as much of it as you possibly can, because it's going to help you. And that's the part for being the entrepreneur. You're right. People see success, and they're like, oh yeah, they're driving around, they're getting to do this. And I mean, my subs that work on my sites for my construction sites are always like, oh, so you're traveling again? Where are you going on vacation this time? So it was always the joke whenever I leave, because before all the COVID stuff that's going on now. So the thing that ended up happening is I was traveling at least once a month, where I'd be gone for a week, if not more often than that. So for business, and a lot of that's the coaching side of things. So whenever we're traveling, but even for me, I still go to trainings now. And, going to those trainings would be some of the things that I was doing too. And they'd be like, oh, you're going on vacation here, you're going on vacation. I'm like, sure.
Well, there's a reason why also these, where we have events at nice places, because we want people to, oh, you're going to Vegas again. It's like, exactly, well, you know that I ain't gambling.
Right.
Like, I'm investing and
I'm not going to Leesburg, nothing against Leesburg, but we're not planning on going away to Leesburg. So it's just not my thing.
What's that?
It's a city up near me.
Oh, okay.
Like a little town. I'm not going to some little town. Like, we're going somewhere where it's fun. That's why we plan events. And that's why we have events in Orlando. That's why we have events in Vegas. I'm still not sure about the Jersey thing though.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I think, it's just because he lives up there is what it comes down to. So we can drive to that event. He figures I get to drive to the Orlando ones. He gets to drive to the Jersey
but you could do it at Wildwood or something, right? That's in
Connecticut. Is that easy to get into? So that would be
it's not. I mean, you have tried?
No, we did AC once last year. Which worked out really well for me, but for everybody else it was a challenge because there's no direct flights into Atlantic City.
Nothing.
Orlando was literally, I think, was the only place that had a direct flight. And I'm like, oh, we lucked into this one. So
yeah, there you go. So, all right. So now it's 09. You're at a Marshall Silver event. You meet Paul and Deb.
Met him there. So, and I didn't get the chance to sit down and talk to him at that point. But what I did is actually at that event, I just literally 2 days before that started dating my fiance now. So I had started dating her there, and I'm, at the end of each day, I'm calling.
You brought her to the event?
No, she didn't go to the event. I just met her, and it was her birthday during that day. So that 2 days while I was at the event was her birthday, and she had plans to go down and see her friends in West Palm. So she was down there having a good time with them. I'm calling her though every night whenever I'm done. And of course, you know how it is going to any event like a Marshall event. So you're stoked whenever that event's over. You got so much energy. You want to talk about so many different things. And that's what I was doing. I was calling her. And I'm like, whenever he comes back to Orlando, which is going to be in 3 months, I said, whenever he comes back to Orlando, you're coming with me because we have tickets. I can come back to this as many times as I want to come back to this. So she's like, okay. And she ended up telling me, so 3 months later, we come back to the event. So Paul and Deb are there again. So I had a little bit better idea if I needed to go ahead and start moving before the crowd actually moved. Right. So unfortunately, the challenge with Marshall events is you have so many people to come back that they know the same thing. I still go back there and still didn't get Paul and Deb. I was back there a lot earlier. But anyways, so Alice and I went to lunch on the first day with a bunch of the students that were there as attendees. So, and we were talking, and she actually, after lunch, we're walking back and she looks at me and she goes, I wanted to let you know, I almost stopped dating you whenever you were calling me from then because you were like on this other planet. She said it, and I didn't know what that planet was. And I just thought it wasn't for me. She's like, and I'm so happy that I stuck with it. So, and found out what it was before I made a decision. She said, because now I totally understand what you're saying. And that got her on board like that, which, as you know, is huge, having the person that's one of the most important people in your life on board with you for what's going on.
Instructive point there as well. Bring your partner, business or personal, to events so that you can share the experience and have an understanding of what's going on, because it's paradigm shifting.
Right. For everybody. And that's the biggest challenge that we'll see at events, is that one person will come and they'll be shifting and the other person's at home and isn't in that process. And no matter what happens, whenever you go home, no matter how much you relay, you can only pull them forward so much. And unfortunately, and it's no fault of their own, it's just they're not at the event. So unfortunately, you end up getting pulled back further from what you had grown into there, just because that's where, and it moves them forward a little bit, but it moves you back. The challenge or the benefit is when you both go, you both take a jump. You may still slide a little, but you're both going to be at a higher level, pushing yourselves to a higher level.
Right. Or, and not that it's, I'm encouraging this, but sometimes that's when then people go, okay, you know what, this is where this is going. I think now I'm done. Yeah. And which is a gift as well. Not it's a painful one, but for some, like I think, that's kind of what happened in my world. My ex-wife, she came to my first event was a Tony Robbins event, was UPW. Right. And after that, we went up together, and then she made
an entirely different choice. It wasn't for her. Yeah.
and it just sped up the inevitable.
Right. Well, and it is, and it's one of the funny things that whenever couples come to us, and if they're having challenges whenever they come into our program, because I mean, just like you and Heidi do, I mean, we don't just coach business, we coach life. So is what we coach whenever we're working with everybody. And whenever they come, they're having challenges, and they're like, will you be able to save our marriage? I'm like, I promise you one thing, you will make a decision one way or the other and be good with the decision by the time you're done with the program.
Right. Yeah. And it's important.
Yeah.
All right. So you got a second chance to meet Paul and Deb.
And still didn't get a chance to sit down with them. So what ends up happening is at that event, I went ahead and invested. Actually, I'd already invested the first time with Marshall in one of the upper level packages. So he had a fulfillment event that was right after the 2-day event for that package. So I went to that, and there I got to know Paul, but another speaker came in and gave tickets away to his event. Well, it just so happened that event, which was in, I think, October, November, we went to that event, which was in Jacksonville. So one up there, and Paul happened to be a coach that was helping out this speaker also whenever I got up there. And he does his spiel up in the front like he always does, and lets people get to know him a little bit. So it says, hey, if you want to go ahead and sign up for lunch, just go back to the back table, sign up. No one got up to go back. So I was happy as heck. This is sweet. So I go back, sign up, ready to go. So I come back to the seat. I signed Alice up too at the same time. So she's like, I'll go. So I don't know what I'm going to talk about. She said, but I'll go. So I'm like, perfect. So I go back and pay for it and come back and sit down. And I'm like, we're the only one signed up. It's like, this is the cheapest one-on-one that I've ever bought in my life with any coach. I'm like, I'm so stoked. So we sit down. So, and then, they go ahead and break for lunch. So we go back later to meet him to break for lunch. And we had to leave the hotel because the restaurant, they didn't have anything in the hotel. So we had to walk to a local restaurant. And I go walking back and I see Paul standing back there with somebody. And I'm like, no. So, and he looks at me and he goes, you ready to go? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is Ashley. I said, hey, Ashley, how you doing? So he's like, follow me. This is where we're going to go. So him and Ashley walk out and they're talking, and Alice and I are walking behind, and I'm looking at Alice and I'm going, I said, we missed out on the chance to have a one-on-one time. She's like, don't worry. Being the supportive spouse or supportive significant other, she's like, don't worry about it. I'm probably not going to talk that much anyways because I don't have a business. So you can use my time to go ahead and talk to Paul. It's one of the reasons why I love her so much. Yeah. So she, whatever makes you happy. So, so we're walking over. I'm like, all right, I'll be all right. So we get over there and we start talking, and because you've been in these lunches before, or those types of lunches before. So Paul does a little bit of talking about himself and then asks who wants to talk. And as you can imagine, me sitting there and being quiet.
You're like Horseshack.
Yeah, exactly. So I went ahead and talked, and I probably talked 15, 20 minutes, whatever it may have been. So Paul's like, all right. And we talked about a few things. And then he looked at Ashley and he's like, all right, so what's going on with you? What can I help you with while we're sitting here at lunch? Which, went through that piece with him. And Ashley started talking, and he was a real estate investor. He was a wholesaler. So, and in the next, I think it was either 45 or 60 days, he had to come up with 60 grand. So, and he'd been doing wholesaling for a long time. So we're talking probably 7 or 8 years. So he knew the game on that side of things. And I was looking at Paul, and Paul's like, and it's the same thing. I'm like moving around in my seat. I'm like that nervous kid. So, and he's like, Keith, do you have something to say? I'm like, are you okay with me, going ahead and saying something? He's like, yeah, go ahead. He said, if there's anything I need to redirect or anything like that, he said, I'll jump in and redirect. It's not a problem. So if you got feedback for him, I'll help him out. Go ahead. So I started in, and then, so for the rest of the time, which was about 45 minutes. So I talked to Ashley about how he could go ahead and create the $60,000 in the next 45 to 60 days that he needed to have. So we did, and we kept looking up, and Paul's like, you're right on track. Just keep on going. So I started in, and then, so for the rest of the time, which was about 45 minutes. So I talked to Ashley about how he could go ahead and create the $60,000 in the next 45 to 60 days that he needed to have. So we did, and we kept looking up, and Paul's like, you're right on track. Just keep on going. So literally, like, Paul got the chance to eat, which, as you know, in coaching lunches, half the time we don't eat. We wait until after we're done, and then we actually eat, because we're usually so stoked at what we're doing during lunch. And so he actually got a chance to eat. And we're walking back, and I'm walking back talking to Ashley the whole time, and Alice is behind me walking with Paul. And we get back over there. So when Ashley goes in, and Paul's like, you did an awesome job. He said, this is something that, you really ought to think about. So I'm like, all right, cool. So thanks. So he goes in and, goes back in. We start the event, and we come back out at the next break. And I was talking to Alice, and Alice told me what Paul said. She's like, he said, you're like this far away from being a really good coach. He said, you have to make some tweaks and do a couple of things different. He said, but you've got so much of this already to be able to be effective doing this. So, and of course that was there's two things. One, it was the truth. So for, because Paul won't say anything that's not the truth one way or the other. And for anybody who knows Paul, Paul's a hell of a salesman. So as far as that goes, so at the same time, he knew what he was doing by seeding that with Alice, because that was going to come back to me. So
Right.
that's what it did, and it did.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, and I wanted to have that, and it's literally what I thought of after he said that. I'm like, you know what? I used to coach. I played baseball for over a decade. So, and then I coached younger kids and then high school kids. So in baseball, and I love that. And I always thought it was because I love baseball. It had nothing to do with baseball. It had everything to do with being able to help people. Baseball at that time was just what I was coaching people in, because it's what I knew at that time to be able to help people with. And that's the part that hit me at that time. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually what it is. That's what I love to do, is help others go ahead and achieve and realize what there's possible for them and what they can actually do, and help them map out that path to get there. So, and help them move along that way. And that literally was like the epiphany piece of boom, I want to do coaching. So as far as
And at that time you were in Marshall's program. Were you still in Roberts?
No, we were done with Roberts at that point.
So then you are in Marshall's, and now Paul is still with Marshall, but he gives you that plant set seed. Was Paul yet on his own as well, or
at that point was right whenever Paul had gone into being on his own?
Okay.
From Marshall, and at the same point, I was done with the Marshall pieces that I had, because as you know, or at least the programs at that point were very much event driven, and I'd already done all the fulfillment on the events that I was supposed to have.
Right.
So that piece I was complete with.
So you were ready for the next step. At that point, had you done any new real estate investing?
Still hadn't. And that because of the fact that I didn't have that person I felt comfortable with to be able to run things by. So I was still in the paralysis analysis mindset.
Got it.
That was what it came down to.
So then you joined Paul's program at that point?
I joined Paul's program there. So I signed up for his program and also the speakers program there, because they had he had a training that he was putting on about speaking. So about being a speaker.
Paul or Marshall?
About being successful for that. So what's that?
Paul or Marshall had the speaker?
No, actually the speaker that Paul was at the event supporting.
Oh, got it. Okay.
For this one up there.
Yeah.
So at that point, I started working with Paul one-on-one. So started in that. And at that point, that was his coaching program. It was 6 one-on-one calls over 3 months. So I started down that road with him. So did my first 2 calls and found out he was having an event in Connecticut. It was literally his first one-day event that he was doing all for himself. And I found out about the event, and I'm like, I reached out to him, and I'm like, can I come up and volunteer? Can I come up and help? So you don't need to pay me. You don't need to do anything. I just want to be there for this event and be able to help you in any way that I can. And here's the funny part about it, because all of us as entrepreneurs are so used to doing so many things ourselves and figuring it out and making it happen without the assistance. Mm-hmm. I literally scared I don't know whether I'm supposed to swear on your Facebook Lives, Doug. So, but I scared the shit out of him is what happened. Yeah. And literally he paused, because I sent him this email and asked him this question. It took him 24 hours to get back to me. And he got back to me. He's like, if you're going to pay your own way up here and you're going to buy your own hotel room, pay for your own hotel room, pay for your food and everything like that, he said, sure, if you want to come up and do that, I'm more than happy to have you. So that was my first opportunity at actually helping out in the back of someone's room. And that's where the stickiness happened. So, once I got the opportunity, crapped on, and I'm done. So he can't get rid of me anymore. So that's where that actually started. And that literally comes in. It's one of the funny things for people that are successful. Whenever you look back at things, what I always look back at is I wasn't getting paid for that. It wasn't somebody saying, hey, come and do this. It was, I see an opportunity where I can provide value. So, and I'll do whatever it is, even if it's out of my own pocket, to make this happen. And that's one of the keys that literally, even to this day, for people who want to work with me, like in my construction business, or want to learn how I run my business and things like that, I'm like, the first thing you need to do is read this. And I give them the same book that I got, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, read this. Whenever you're done reading that, come back to me and we'll have a conversation. You know how many people have actually done that and come back to me?
Very few.
Uno, my project manager.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think here another point to address is, because you valued your time, and I don't want to come across like I'm accusing people of not valuing themselves, but we know that oftentimes it's a self-worth issue that people are like, oh, I don't know if I deserve.
Right.
You went up and you worked for free. You donated your time. And it, I'm sure you weren't, looking wherever you were financially at that time,
Mhm.
obviously you had your business going, you had things happening to a degree, but I'm gonna guess that it was a capital expense
Oh yeah.
to get yourself up there, that it was not
At that
like,
point, you have to realize the real estate business had been a huge negative. So is all it had
right,
been. And I had actually, it was right before we got laid off from the company that I worked for, building custom homes. Because it was about 4 months later, I got laid off from that. But that was the thing is for me, that was a huge amount of money to be able to go ahead and spend after I'd gone ahead and already put out 60 grand. I mean, it was still a couple grand to fly up there for the hotel, to take care of my
right.
food, all the things that I needed to take care of for that. And that was a
And
big
it was
decision.
to work. It
Right.
wasn't like he was saying you could like be there for free.
Yeah.
It was still costing you your sweat equity
Correct.
and so forth. And I think again that's an instructive bit of business, because when I look at my successes in life, my first success in the music industry, I interned, I worked for free, I lived off of credit cards, right?
Exactly.
And then to get into Tony, I started out crewing. And
Right.
that's how I infiltrated the community, and I started to get to know people. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Now I have access to some of the people, and then that was how I finally got to Tony. But like those experiences are vital.
They are. And it literally goes ahead, and what it shows is that you're willing to do literally whatever it takes, like we always talk about. So
Right.
it's, hey, just tell me what to do, and I'm more than happy to be the person to take care of that for you, because that's valuable enough. And the way I always look at it, I truly actually feel so that in a lot of those cases, I should be paying them to be there, because I'm taking in so much, even though I'm providing so much value.
Well,
So for them,
I will tell you, Tony Robbins' model is that
I know.
you pay for
Paul's model is that too now. So it has been.
pay leadership for Date with Destiny. Basically, you pay to crew.
Right.
Like now you get different trainings, you get different stuff. You are playing a different role. It's not like you're just, zenning the room, but it still is a service to the participants that you paid to have to be able to do.
Right. And I agree. And it's literally what Paul did, because later on, and here's where the challenge came in. Right after I did that piece, I got back, and the last 2 construction managers in my company got laid off outside of me. And I'm like, oh, darn. Because after I'd gone ahead and spent that money that I'd done for all that stuff, I'm like, I need to make sure I keep this job, because we're talking a 6-figure a year job, so that I need to be able to hold on to and make sure my money's coming in so I can take care of my nuts, so I don't run into issues, because that money that I had saved up, so I'd used and burned.
Invested, yep.
Yeah. So it's like that. Again, it just reinforced the fear piece is what it did. It's like, oh, crap. So that's what I did. I got very focused on that. I literally stopped, and I always call it my stutter step with Paul. So I stopped the coaching program. It was either 3 or 4 of the 6 sessions, and didn't ever finish that first set of sessions with him. So even after going up and volunteering,
Wow.
went in, stayed focused on the construction business for going ahead and building custom houses. And in April of 2010, so I think it was 2000. Yeah, I think it was 2010. So got laid off. So from my construction job. So, and at that point, I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And surprise, surprise, had an event scheduled. So that just happened to, whenever I got there, it was that speaking event that I had told you I had bought at the other one that I invested in. So I come walking into the hotel, and it was in Orlando. So I'm like, all right, this is perfect. I don't have to worry about hotel. I can still drive home. I mean, there were things lining up. I'm like, all right, definitely going to this. I got to find out what I can do now anyways. So I go walking into this event. And like I'm walking down the hall to where the registration area is at, and I look up, and who do I see at the end of the hall?
It's Paul. Yeah.
And if you've ever met Paul, so for something like that, he looks at you and smiles and opens his arms up wide, because at that point we were still allowed to hug.
I'm still hugging. I don't know about you. It's awkward because some people don't want it, but
you get that. Yeah. So I walked down there, and he's like, what happened? And I'm like, and literally at that point, it was one of those emotional points in my life because of everything that happened. Like we talked about self-worth earlier, my self-worth was attached to my job. So and whenever I didn't have the job, I didn't know how to value myself. So literally he said that, and boom, the waterworks started. So, 5 minutes of going ahead and letting him know what was going on. And he's like, are the goals still the same? So I'm like, yes. He's like, well, then you're in the perfect place. He said, by the end of this weekend, you'll be in a much better spot and know where you're going. And at the end of that, that's where the part comes in, like you were talking about, as far as paying for your education piece goes. Because the piece that he had at that point was teaching you how to go ahead and do the back of room consultative selling that he was doing at events. So, and he offered that up there. And that's what, again, another one of those things. I write you a big check. So I go and follow you around for a 3-day event, actually 4 days because you're there the day before. So follow you around for those 4 days, find out everything that's going on. So, and then after that, there's no promises of doing anything. So it was like, thank you very much for coming out. So, you know, if you want to go ahead and do any more, you know, let us know. We'll figure something out. Whenever we have a chance to volunteer, you can come out. And that's whenever you have another chance to volunteer, you can come out and volunteer.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what happened. And because of the fact that where I live, again, just certain things line up. I live in Orlando. So many people come into Orlando to speak and train, so that it made it easy. And he was supporting so many speakers in Orlando. Every time he was coming here, I'm like, hey, I'll come and volunteer. I'll come and do whatever. One event in the Orlando International Airport, the hotel that's in the Orlando, which is, I think it's a Marriott, that's in there. So literally Paul's got 6 kids, if you don't know Paul. So amazing story. So 3 sets of twins. But this is when they were all still young. He brings them all with him a lot whenever he goes, especially coming to Orlando because, of course, they went to Disney and stuff like that. But he brings the 6 of them. Part of my job during that event was to supervise the kids.
Yeah.
You do whatever is what it comes down to. It didn't matter what was asked.
And they all they kept all their fingers and toes.
Yeah, as far as I know. So I didn't see any blood dog, but you just you know, sometimes you hide that stuff.
Yeah, true. That'd be good.
So that was really what, and again, I continued to show up, and that was the key. So it's one of the reasons, because in that speaker training piece that I was doing, and then the course that Paul offered up afterwards, there were either 5 or 6 people who went ahead and invested in that same program. Mm-hmm. So I was the only one that stuck around and was persistent through it all and kept volunteering. And that's what's led to the fact now Paul and I have been working together for 10 plus years. So of me going ahead and helping and coaching his students and helping him at his events. And I'm the one that runs his events now, essentially, whenever we're there. So I take care of everything back of house so he can be up on the stage and doing what he needs to do to be effective and help people move forward. So to me, it's been huge. So without taking those steps in the beginning, so without that volunteering and things like that, I'd never be where I'm at right now.
When did you get back in? Like, you're at this point, you're with Paul. How did so you were out of your gig,
right?
What did you start doing? Was it doing investing in real estate or starting to build, do your construction yourself? Like,
well, it was the 3 pieces that I started doing at that point right now, because I had a whole boatload of time. So that's the one thing I did have a ton of at that point, was to go ahead and use it. So, and I got back into real estate investing. It was still wholesaling because I had 0 money at that point to be able to do anything. And, so I started working on the wholesale deals with him being there. And what it did for me is I could analyze the deals. That was never the challenge. It was knowing that, all right, after those couple of times being burned, so that I can actually go ahead and pull the trigger fast. And that's what that was for me. And that's what, having that person by your side who's experienced in those areas and go ahead and say, yeah, it looks great. So, or, hey, you might want to look at this, or you forgot about this, and go ahead and take care of that. And yet what it does is it shortens your learning curve on everything. And for me, it was the confidence piece to actually be able to go ahead and take that step then. So I got back into the wholesaling side of things, and started making money there. And at the same time, that's whenever I created my construction company, my remodeling company at that point. So that's where we started, because I didn't have one before that. I was working for somebody else. So that's where we went ahead and created that piece. And that started there. And then the coaching piece came about 90 days after that. So it was where that started.
And coaching with Paul, or were you starting to coach?
No, I was coaching with Paul. So coaching students there. So it was what we were doing, because at that point he'd been on his own for a year and a half. So and he was getting to the point where that program that I went through originally wasn't going to be able to work for him, because he didn't have enough hours in the day to be able to take care of all of his students and be able to go ahead and do the other pieces that he was doing, which was supporting other speakers and speaking on stages himself. So I'm doing that, the usual info marketing piece.
Right. So it sounds like you also had a curve in your time availability and allotment, because Paul was doing the bulk of the coaching while you were able to build your business. So it wasn't like you were having lost opportunities because you were so involved with Paul and not able to build your business to get to the point now where you could leverage both, where you're able to, balance.
And I guess the way I look at this, and you were talking like, hey, the gig economy and going ahead and grabbing a hold and having side hustles and things like that. So the coaching piece is something that I love to do. So what I wanted to build at that time was the construction business. And again, you're still looking at what's going on in 2010. So it's, it's starting to get a little bit better, but it's not moving real good yet. Right. So you're still kind of stuck as far as that part goes. So getting it up and running was a much slower and a much for me, then it was still me trading dollars or hours for dollars. So, because it was me going out and doing the work at that point, because a lot of the things I was getting were small jobs where I couldn't bring somebody else in to do the work at that point. So, that's where my hustle was.
You were swinging the hammer. You've always, like, part of your gig at various times was swinging the hammer yourself.
Before I started doing that, and I was a construction manager ever since I was in Florida, but in Pennsylvania, where I was born and raised. That's how I started out. I was in the field. I was the guy doing the work. There's no question about it.
Great. Do you swing hammers ever now? Like, do you miss
I always tell all my homeowners or my clients, whenever I'm working with them, like, if you see me swinging a hammer, we've got a challenge.
Oh.
I said, I can do it, but that means that something blew up somewhere and I have to go ahead and do this. I said, and I can tell you right now, that hasn't happened. And I don't even remember the last that I truly swung a hammer. It's probably been at least 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
So where I was actually working for any length of time, other than I need to adjust the doorknob or something like that after things are done. So those things I'll take care of if I need to. But even then, I usually don't do that. So.
Was that something that you enjoyed? And
I mean, I like being able to do that, but I don't enjoy it enough to be doing that all the time. And I guess the biggest thing that I look at with it, I can have a much bigger impact in the industry by going ahead and running jobs, because I mean, for me, the passion part on the construction side is there's so many people and there's such a bad image for contractors that are out there. That what ends up happening is those guys over there. So it's like everyone's heard that horror story. So, this guy did this or that person did that. So, and make sure this doesn't happen to you. I've heard so many of those horror stories, and I'm like, just like anything else, not all contractors are that way. And there's a much easier, more effective route to do it, which is literally what worked for me. And that's why I need to go ahead and get that message out there to homeowners, which is like for the contractor hiring secret. That's literally where that came from. So it's an ebook. So it's got 10 tips in there, the questions you need to be asking for looking for contractors. So, and then the secret question to find out whether they actually know what the hell they're doing. So, or whether you're going to end up screwed down the line somewhere. But that's how that piece came apart, because I want to go, or came up about, is because I want to go ahead and change that industry. And I want the homeowner to actually know what they should be looking for to go ahead and screen and get the right person. Mm-hmm. And then there's increased pieces past that where I actually help them and do proposals for them. So they'll come to me with the information about what they want to do for their construction project. So we'll run through a bunch of different questions, and I'll get the idea of what the project is, and I create a proposal for them that they can then use when they're interviewing their contractors, because now everybody's bidding off of the same exact description, as opposed to each one of us coming in and they've got hey, I want to remodel the kitchen. Well, you could do this, or you could do that, or you could do that. And the next guy comes in, does the same thing. The next lady comes in and says, hey, you could do it. And all of us are bidding an apple, an orange, and a peach. So, and the homeowner's like, I don't know how to make the decision on this one. That is what it comes down to.
Right.
If we give it all in the same thing, then they at least have a general idea and everybody's bidding the same process. And that's the part that most homeowners, they just don't know what they don't know, because it's not their gig. They don't know that they need to have that ready for them to be effective.
So it's interesting. It sounds like on some level, you're actually coaching homeowners as well.
That is the entire goal. Yes.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that. And then after that, it's start coaching my business partners on how to have effective customer focused businesses, so that you go ahead and take care of your people. So, and build big businesses and have lots of employees, and all those types of things where you can have whatever your level of success, whatever your measurement of success is. So by going ahead.
What is your goal with both your construction and coaching vision?
So for me, on the coaching side of things, I literally want to revolutionize the industry so that my company and my process is what every homeowner does. So whenever they're remodeling the house, so whenever they say, hey, you're going to remodel the house, you need to go ahead and do the OTCC process to go ahead and get clear on everything that you want, so that you've got this whole blueprint that you can literally hand to your contractors. And then now they can tell you exactly what's going to happen. So you know exactly what's going to go in the house. So they're able to give you good pricing, so that you don't get to the end of the job and, guys are saying, hey, I need this much more money, or hey, I need this much more, or you don't get what you were looking for in the house, or it takes 6 times longer than what you thought it was going to take. So I want to eliminate all of those. So I want to be that go-to person for the entire industry. So I want to rewrite the way remodeling is done. So throughout the United States.
Love it. And that is your coaching / construction business. Right. So you're marrying the two,
right.
Love it.
So obviously the idea is in Central Florida for me, whenever I'm doing it for people in my area here. So is to be able to, for the right projects for my company. So is to be able to go ahead and say, hey, if you're looking for pricing for someone to go ahead and do this, we can go ahead and give you pricing if you would like that from us too. So, and we can see how we can go ahead and work with you.
Well, is your goal to be a national construction company as well?
The national part, I'm not so sure, but what I am looking for with it is, because the proposals are something that are national, is to have partners in other regions or in other areas where they go ahead, and these will be people who are trained by me in the first place.
Like licensing your method.
Exactly.
Right.
So go ahead and do that. And it's one of the pieces that's definitely a long-term goal for me of where I want this to grow into, because I think all it does is help the whole industry out overall. So and help the clients out, and it helps the business partner. I mean, it literally helps everybody is what it comes down to, because things get so much easier for everyone.
And who's your end user? Is it mostly for now? Is it homeowners, or is it construction?
Right now, it's mainly homeowners. So is what it comes down to. So it'll morph, but I want to go ahead and right now it's to build the actual construction remodeling company too. Because right now everything that I get has been referrals, which is built. I've literally almost doubled my business every year for the last 5 years. So as far as my remodeling company goes, so it's killing it as far as that part goes. Yet it's only relying on referrals. Right. And as we all know, as business owners, so if you put all your eggs in that one basket and something happens to the basket, you're screwed.
And and we both know referrals are the best because they're the cheapest, and you have the warmest reception and so forth,
exactly.
Which can get very addictive.
Yes.
Because then you go, wait a minute, why am I spending for those leads?
When we all talk about numbers and look at our numbers, we're all like, oh yeah, I'm closing 45% of the people that I talk to on moving forward with the project. Well, they're referrals. You should be closing that.
You should be doing better than that.
But it is, I want to get more of those people, and I really do, to get the message out. So that's where it starts, and then going ahead and I've got that proven piece to be able to show the contractors, like, oh, I can see what he's done now. It becomes an easy piece for them too now. They're like, oh, This is what I want to do. So that it's all going hand in hand. And then the third piece of that, Doug, so that I want to go ahead and create, because I'm seeing the tsunami that's coming in this industry, is that they're aging. So most of the people who know what they're doing are getting older, and there's not many people coming in that are younger right now, because the schools have done an awesome job of saying, hey, you need to go to college and get a good education so you can go out and get a good job. While that's good for certain people, there's no question it works well for them. There's another sector, another part of our society that's not the best advice you could give that person. So, and they could do very well in this industry. Like all of my business partners, which is what I call my subcontractors, but all of my business partners, though, are all making six figures themselves, the owners of the companies, every year without a challenge. And that's what I want to go ahead and
they're like without
swinging
contract,
hammers.
but they're not exclusive, but you keep them busy enough to be exclusive.
Well, some of them I do keep busy enough to be exclusive, but usually most of them are going ahead and they work for other contractors and or homeowners and do what we call the retail side of it. So they're going out and doing service calls and things, like the plumber goes out and does service calls, HVAC guy does switch outs.
Right. Okay.
Like that. But yeah, they don't just work for me, but I want to teach. What I want to do then is get more young people involved in the industry, because there's a huge opportunity here that you can have a great living and a great life. So, and it takes, like in Florida, it takes 5 years of a combination of either education or experience to be able to get your license. So, and that takes a little bit of time. You've got to have the persistence and the commitment to really want this and go after it to be able to do that. And whenever you do that, though, even when you get done, I've had so many contractors who are great at what they do. They can't manage their way out of a box. Right. That is what it comes down to. So when they own a business, unfortunately, the business fails, which then, for them gets disheartening. And that's the last part that I want for them. So what I want
part of your model, the OTC method, is also how to build a construction business, like almost a business.
Literally, I want to work hand in hand with the guys that are teaching them the trade, whatever trade it would be, and at the same time be teaching those new people how to go ahead and run a business.
Right.
At the same time. And I've already talked to my HVAC guy, one of my plumbers, so my electrician, and they're all willing to do it because they'll get good quality work. Essentially, you're getting someone that's signing up for 5 years to be your employee because they have to learn this process, is what it comes down to. And even when they break out on their own, just like any new business, there's going to be a ramp up time, which means you're going to have someone who's very qualified that's still able to do subcontract to them while they're going ahead and building their own business. So at the same time, so they still have that. And I'm also looking to make it as a referral piece for them on a long-term basis, a long-term coaching relationship, because no matter what, I have people that I go back to that have been building for years whenever I've got questions or challenges and I don't know what the answer is. So, and that's the same piece for them to be able to go back to that person that's trained them. So, and that they can be that advisor, so that they're going to need in their business anyways.
Awesome. So which do you enjoy more, the coaching aspect or the project, or like the business management side?
And for me, it's equal is what I guess
Okay.
the way I look at it, because there's different aspects to each of them that I enjoy. Obviously, the coaching side of things, I love being able to help people go ahead and realize their potential, and a lot of times go so far past what they thought their potential was.
Mm-hmm.
So that I love that piece, and I still love being able to create something that somebody lives in and loves and is talking to their friends about and taking pictures of, and and they're going to live there for the next 20 years because they love it so much. That to me is fun too, and I love being able to drive past that and go, I did that.
Right. Well, and it's such an interesting, it's a different kind of subjectivity. Like
Right.
when someone, they have an improvement of their life, it's a little harder to measure,
Right.
which feels good, but it's, based on what criteria and all that. But then, you could see, so again, someone could go, looks great, not my cup of tea. So there's still some subjectivity, but it's at least a complete project that is able to at least be seen.
Right.
And so forth. So I also want to acknowledge your marketing prowess in that you're always out there sharing, kind of what's going on, and you're constantly investing in yourself. I know you're a ClickFunnels guy, and
Yep.
I know you've been to those events and so forth. So you're utilizing the technology, and you are, for lack of a better word, revolutionizing, I think, a lot of the way construction is done and marketed, because a lot of people, like, it's a different mindset to get into the marketing and get into that aspect versus, just doing the work. The two very different hats.
Well, and that whenever I was partnered with the business partner I had when I started real estate investing, so that was one of the biggest differences that we had, because in his mind it was, all right, let's get these jobs if we need to, because we're short on time or money, we do the work in them. So that meant you're going point to point to point. So you've got to finish one project, then you can start marketing for the next project. And that's not a way to build a business. So, or at least if you're gonna have a business, it's gonna be a roller coaster up and down like there's no tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that a long time ago. And it's one of the pieces that I really love. So is marketing. So is having those conversations, is figuring things out on how to go ahead and attract people. And you're right, because like now, every day on my job sites, I'm taking pictures. And like my stepdaughter now, she's my driver. So I always kid her, she's driving Mr. Daisy. So as far as that goes, for any of us who know what that reference actually goes back to.
Well, I brought an even older one, Horseshack. Like,
there you go. Yeah, that's true. You're right. So she does that now. So she drives me around, and that's one of the things that I look at is I have her taking pictures too whenever I'm out there, because as you know, I have social media posts every day. There's no question about it. I don't miss a day as far as social media goes. And that's one of the things in our industry that most people don't do. Like some of the suppliers and showrooms will go ahead and do that kind of thing. But the guys who actually have the companies, they're kind of hit and miss. So with what they do on social media. And that I always tell, and this is what I've always told Paige, that's my stepdaughter. So you only have to do this much more to look like a rock star.
Right.
And that's literally it, because and there's so many different ways to do that in life and in your business. So, but doing that, that to me isn't a big deal to go ahead and take pictures and post them on social media. So, write a quick little post and put it out there. And very few people do it. So it establishes
how much new business do you think you've gotten, or is it just added like?
Oh no, I can literally track that. And so I just finished up a $275,000 project, so renovation. So they came directly off of my social media and off of, I still use, it's still the real estate stuff, the banners out by the street. So is what I use. I still use those on every one of my job sites that has my social media links on it. I don't put a website on it anymore. Just my social media links.
Smart.
Because that's updated all the time.
Right.
So I want them to go there. I want them to be able to follow that. I want them to be able to, they can ask questions through there. So, and literally that job came directly from one of those signs, which led to the social media, which led to them going ahead and contacting me to be able to do the project.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you think the internet's going to be around for a while then?
We'll find out. So I won't say for sure, Doug, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to stick.
It's one of those new things. You just never know how the newfangled things are going to happen.
So as we start wrapping up here, what do you see the future of your experience in real estate? Because I know you've been busy. I think there are some that, experience like, oh, no, I'm not going to do my reno right now. I'm not going to did you experience any of that? Did you have any pushback?
And it's out of, that's one of the things that I was hearing as all of this was happening. So as I kept hearing, you know what, there's a slowdown. And there are some people in some industries, there's no question that affected them that way. In the construction industry, not a bit. I mean, we're talking myself and all of my business partners. So I'm talking to them. They're like, we need to hire more people. So because we're unable to keep up with the flow that's coming in right now. So for us, so we're seeing something. It's always funny because we all listen to the, I won't say we all listen to news, but you see either news, or you see it on social media feed or whatever it may be.
Right.
So you see it flash by at least, and you look at those stories and it's like, it's not my reality, what they're talking about. And that's a huge key. So, and we could talk on that for like 3 hours, I'm sure.
Right. Well, yeah, those are the rabbit holes that we end up going down, but it's true because I think, the reticular activator system, goes into effect. And if you're looking for reasons why the business isn't going to work or what have you, you'll find evidence
every time.
Yeah. And it's out there. And, thankfully you haven't looked for that evidence, or if you've seen it, you haven't allowed it to infiltrate your psyche. And
I think that's the bigger piece, Doug.
Yep.
And it's, I guess one of the big things that happens, I always look at challenges happen in everybody's business. I've been in business now for my construction business for 10 years now. So everyone's like, oh yeah, so you're set up, everything's good to go. So no challenges. There's challenges every day is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And the challenges are different every day. Because that's kind of crazy if you're repeating the same challenge over and over again. But whenever you get a new challenge every day, and the way that I always look at it, and this is what I tell my coaching students. So is whenever those challenges are popping up, so look at it this way. If it's your commitment to do whatever you said you were going to do, you're going to build this business to what you said you were going to, you're going to have this impact with your movement to be able to do this. So you're going to get tested by whether you look at it as God, the universe, whoever it might be that you're almighty being. So whenever I look at it that way, they're going to find out, are you truly committed to it?
Yep.
So I'm going to throw some roadblocks up. And if you pass the roadblocks, then all right, you're committed. And at the same time, it's taking the person I am today is not the person who's able to go ahead and run that business that you and I were just talking about for where the vision is. So right. I've got to grow myself to get there, which means I have to go through challenges. I've got to go ahead and get that steel needs to be strengthened. So and hardened as far
right.
as
And you bring in a great point is that oftentimes, again, because the technology that we're talking about, right, the social media and all of that also creates an illusion of a rate by which things occur or like how good things actually look. And then people say, yeah, I'm committed. And then, but for how long? Well, how many posts is it gonna,
exactly.
And it's really interesting as we're watching, all this happen in all these areas when there are evidences of possibility, but it's going to take a little time.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the key pieces that I learned. And you talked about Russell earlier. It's one of the things that he goes ahead and Russell, for anyone who knows Russell Brunson, that's the owner of ClickFunnels, talks about when you're publishing, you publish every day for a year. So, and there's two reasons behind that. One is you're going to find your voice because when you start, you suck. So I sucked whenever I started. There's no question about it. Doug's an entirely different person now than what he was when he started all of this. There's no question about it. All right. And that's what you end up finding is your voice. So, and it also means that that's going to grow as you grow. So, and which means your following will grow because as your voice gets stronger, you start finding the people that resonate with it and your tribe starts to grow and your following starts to grow. So actually, that's one of the reasons why you publish every day in the beginning, because you have to get through the suck. So, and actually part of it is you're actually happy there's nobody there when you're doing it because you're figuring it out. That's what it comes down to.
Well, which boils back down to the instant gratification. I want to be awesome immediately, and I want 100,000 followers immediately, and I want to, 100K a month immediately. Right. And, and
that doesn't happen that way for most people.
Well, but then sadly, I think for some coaches, there's also, while I don't disagree, it's a fine line. It's like act as if. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I get it. Act as if. What that means is have the confidence, have the belief, see, hear, and feel yourself doing it, but know that you're going to have to do that for a little while, that it's not like I act as if, therefore it must be the case. It even took Neo how many movies to figure out he didn't need to plug into,
right. Actually plug himself into the Matrix. He was in the Matrix.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is a huge key. So is that you've got to have, that's one of the biggest pieces for entrepreneurs to be successful. You've got to have the confidence and the belief in yourself that this is going to happen. and I'm going to figure out how, because the how isn't even the how that I started with. And a lot of these isn't what I'm working with now is what it
And
comes
for a
down to.
variety of reasons, not
Right.
only because you learn, but just because literally things change. The
Change.
market shifted,
Exactly.
technology changes.
Right.
So, so often, and I talk about this a lot, and I spoke about it with Paul and so forth as well, is sometimes we pick models, which is brilliant. We need to do that.
Right.
And sometimes we don't take into account the timeline of the model.
Agreed.
Like, if I wanted to start a construction business and I go to you, Keith, okay, what do I do? And you don't understand coaching, you could tell me what you're doing, not what you did when you first started and what you would do to start your business right now. You're like, you're talking about, I just posted and I got a $275,000 deal. Like, oh, so that's all I got to do.
I just got to post once and I'll have a $275,000 deal. Show up.
Right. I don't know, Keith. I don't think your strategy
I don't think this
works.
thing's working. Yeah, I don't think what you're talking about actually happens that way. And you're right. And it's as coaches, that's one of the biggest things that we have to keep in mind. So is where the person we're working with is starting from, because for us, so often we've taken the steps past there and it's like, well, just do this. And we don't realize we did A, B, C, D, E, F, and G before we ever got to H and I.
Right.
And you don't just jump straight to that.
And it's so funny, like, I use Tony Robbins as a great example because everybody knows Tony and can relate. You see Tony walk out and like do a process or do something. You're like, I could do that.
Exactly.
Like, well, okay. One of the things that you're not like realizing is the people in that room have known Tony for probably 20 years.
Right.
Tony can get away with a lot more.
A lot more, yeah. The conversations that he can have because of who he is.
He's got the rapport built in. He's got so much leverage. It's not that easy. Just go, oh yeah, devils come out. Like, well, yes.
They do that. Doug, you do that in your room. People are like, gotta go. So,
well, no, I've actually done it, but it's, but I've done things like that, but it's because I understand what he's doing, but I have the rapport first. It's not like,
that's the key.
Right. And it's understanding it's more than just like, oh, I just hang a shingle and people build it and they will come. Like, yes, and you got to have that. I get it.
You know what? It's the thing we always talk about is the overnight success. So yeah, I've been 10 years in the making of an overnight success.
Right. And it's important that, and again, this is, I thank you for your vulnerability and sharing, sort of the process and the challenges, because that's the purpose of this show, is to show that all of these overnight successes, all these people who've accomplished so much have been dedicating tons of time, energy, finances, like vision, challenges, breakthroughs, blood, sweat, and literally tears in order to get to where they are right now to make it look so easy.
Right. And it's like we talked about, it's the continuing process. It never ends.
Right.
And that's the part that you see too many people that once they get to whatever in their mind was their level of success, like, oh, well, good. Now I can just kind of, relax and sit back and things like that. And one of the biggest things that Paul and I live by, so is either growing or dying. Yep. There's no in between. So either you keep moving forward or you start falling back is what happens.
Well, right. Because even if you try and do status quo, there are people going to pass you.
Right.
So even if you stop, people are going to pass you. You may not be, and it's still going backwards by proxy, as opposed to just, some people just giving up and starting to retract on their own. Just even trying to maintain is going backwards.
And like you said, I mean, even no matter how good you are at what you do, even the technology is consistently changing. So, even if you were nailing every bit of your technology right now, the new ones, and that's why, all the new things that pop up on social media, you always have to look at it and go, all right, how can this be utilized to go ahead and reach more people for me? It's one of the things that I've always been on Facebook. So, and the whole Instagram piece I ignored for the longest time. And I'm like, it's the young kids. What am I going to do with that? Then the light bulb clicks in my head. Well,
they're going to be old people once.
Yes, exactly. Sooner or later, they're going to get to the point where they're my buyers. So I need to establish who I am right now for the brand in front of them. So I'm the one that they're reaching out to.
Yeah. Oh, well, look at artists and stuff like, musicians, like Rolling Stones, the grandparents are bringing their grandkids to the shows because they're wanting to, and the Stones love it, or, Bon Jovi or, whatever the artists who are still out there giving shows, all ages, because the parents and grandparents were sharing what's going on so that they can appreciate it.
Exactly.
Love it. Well, as we're wrapping up here, what are any final words, any like nuggets, something that maybe you wish you had applied or learned, maybe someone shared with you that you didn't apply?
As I say, one of the things and one of the biggest challenges after I had done that first coaching program that I did, so whenever it didn't work, there was a pause in my head because you get into, or at least I did at that point, and I've heard this a lot of times with the events that I coach. Well, until I go ahead and make my money back on that first investment, I'm not going to go ahead and invest anything else. Here's what I want y'all to know. So I'm over $200,000 now in my post-secondary education, not counting college. So that's what I've invested in myself to this point. All right. If I had stopped after those first failures, I would have never reached this. Right. So continue the process, whatever it is. If it means investing in yourself, like some of the programs that I did led me to that next person. I did Marshall's program. So that led me to Paul. If I hadn't done Marshall's program, which came from actually a multi-speaker event from Rich Dad Poor Dad that Marshall spoke at, if I hadn't gone to that after I bought my coaching program, so if I'd never attended the multi-speaker, I would have never found Marshall. If I'd never invested in Marshall, I may have never found Paul. And I mean, literally, it's that huge trickle-down effect. So invest in yourself. And the second thing that I would say, is find someone that you can work with, that you like, that has exactly what you want or is where you want to be, and go as deep as you can with that person.
Yeah.
The challenge is too many people will hop around and grab whatever that surface knowledge is that's there, that beginning program that's there. And they're like, well, I just needed this one piece. I hear that so often. I just need this one tool and it'll be effective.
Right.
The challenge is, we all know in business, it's a tool. It's not a process. It's not a system. It's not, support. It's not coaching. It's not mentoring. There's going to be more things that pop up where when you go deep with that person that you like, that you've resonated with, that you want to work with, you go deep with them, you're going to have the biggest impact, the shortest timeline you possibly can for achieving success when you're following up with what they tell you to do. So it's always the key. So,
right.
But that's the one way to do it. So go deep.
I love it. And to just piggyback, dovetail in what you said, the two things I would add is I
like the dovetail thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
going deep also is that investment. It's not just focus, because meaning if they have tons of content on YouTube, that doesn't mean you don't go to the show or get a chance to, meet them or work with them, because that's like going, well, I don't know if I want to go have sex with another human. I'm just going to watch porn.
Well, exactly.
It's
one way to experience, but there's night and day. Is
right.
What it comes down to. Yeah.
So our friends out here, stop having, personal development and business porn.
There you
go out and build a relationship with coaches, with events, find your way to infiltrate those ecosystems. And that is what is going to prove to be the most beneficial.
Every time.
Love it, brother. Well, we got your contractor hiring secret.com.
Secret. No S.
Right, yeah. It sounded like I said S that first time. Is contractor hiring secret.com.
Yes.
And so you can download that PDF. And at that site, is there also ways to get in touch with you, or is that
from there they get the opportunity? They see a quick video after that, and they get the opportunity, especially if they're doing a project, so they can schedule a time to actually sit down with me, complimentary session. So 25 to 30-minute session where we run through your project and I kind of map out some of the things that you're going to need to have. And then for the people who want to move forward with something with me, there's an opportunity to actually go even deeper than that piece. So if that's the way that you want to go ahead and get in touch with me, you can go there. You can find me On Time Home Reminders on Facebook. So Instagram, it's Keith Meals. It's just my name. So on Instagram. So if you want to go ahead and connect, feel free to connect in any of those ways. So for sure.
Beautiful. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. I love you for who you are and who you aren't. And look forward to seeing you soon. And, of course, hanging and basking in the glory of the rock that we share.
There we go, man. So I look forward to it, Doug. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Peace.
Have a good one.
You too. All right.